district, the mowing and lawn maintenance, the trimming, the blowing of the sidewalks, and that will continue through the end of the growing season. We're looking about the middle of November for our contract work to continue till then. I just want to make y'all aware of that.
Okay.
David, one thing I want to ask you on that, I think that's great that we got that taken care of because it is a burden on the other staff. Budget wise, will you still have Wayne on your budget and then have the expense on the other side? I just don't want you to get in trouble with the budget.
At this time, Wayne is using PTO hours.
Okay.
I'm not sure what he has left on that, but this is an item that whether I feel, it has to be taken care of. David's guys are unable to cover it, so it's a cost that we're going to have to pay. I don't know if Mr. Corsi has an answer, a little bit more detailed answer on that, but it is what we are stretched in at Public Works with the growing season going on, and so the ability to come in and take care of this, they come in once a week and take care of everything that needs to be done right there.
Does it exceed what is currently being has been budgeted? Does the contract amount exceed what is currently budgeted for his salary?
I don't believe so, no ma'am. I do not have those specific numbers in front of me. I apologize for that. I can get you that answer on that right there.
Well, if it doesn't exceed, then there really wouldn't be an issue. If it does exceed, then I don't know whether we would have to approve that or not, but I guess it would depend on whether it's exceeding it. And then I guess you might want to put it in the budget for October, November, and then you could budget either him or someone else for the remainder of the for the fiscal year. Yes, ma'am. Jenny.
It will exceed the amount because he's paid out of payroll for salaries, but the lawn maintenance will be paid out of either professional services or operating expenditures. And Mr. Emerson does have enough PTO time to last throughout the remainder of this fiscal year. Mm-hmm. So everything that we pay them will be over.
Okay. So do we need to discuss that, approve that, or is that an issue?
I think
I'm not sure.
We just need to look and make sure we're below that 50% for administrative, that language that's in the CRA document for us to be under 50% for administrative and maintenance, whatever the language is. And that's inclusive of Wayne's salary and that contract labor to maintain, because that's not considered a capital project. And the balance of that money is supposed to be going to public projects or earmarked for projects. That's my concern. That's all.
So Nancy, what do you propose?
I don't have an answer for that. I'm just making sure that we're all aware that, that's something on this particular budget item we have to make sure that we pay attention to.
Okay. And I'm trying to think, is that going to be discussed at our next budget meeting, or have we already discussed that?
No, I think we do discuss CRA next Thursday night. Okay. So maybe David, you could bring that to us
right.
Next Thursday night, those numbers. That's a great idea.
Okay.
I will. I'll be meeting with Jennifer when she gets back from vacation.
Okay.
So if you just let us know, make sure that marker's under the 50% when you add his salary. All the administrative expenses have to be under that 50% mark. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, David, that you would like to discuss?
No, ma'am. That's all I have at this time.
Mr. DeCourcy, do you
have
have
a question for Mr. Corsi to come? So now for that workshop, You just won't be able to discuss that. You're gonna be able to vote on anything, to disapprove,
Right.
approve anything.
Right.
for that.
Right, but that will be for the next year, so at least we will be aware of what's going on. No, at the workshop, we don't vote on anything.
Yes. And David, so you just had just that one, you took that out to bid, or you just asked whoever for that contract, David, to keep that grass moving?
No, sir, it didn't go to bid. The cost for the contract was less than what needed to be bid and being temporary. I talked to Mr. Corsi and we got this worked out and approved with the local lawn company. And it was just going to last through the end of the fiscal year. And based on what Mr. Emerson called and told me when he revealed that he would be out for at least 2 more months, I went again, talked to Mr. Corsi and we decided that we would, based on David Benton's staffing, that we would need to continue to take this mowing temporarily through the end of the mowing season.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
David?
Thank you for taking care of that and making sure it gets done, because that does make a big difference in our downtown.
Oh, yes. And taking care of our employees is important too. And that's good to see. Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes, Madam Chair. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Could you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, due to the extenuating circumstances, Mr. Emerson was unforeseen, so therefore it was something that needed to be done because his work is remarkable. He was thoroughly missed, so it's something that we felt was that needed to be addressed and taken care of. Other than that, David's doing a wonderful job. He's very enthusiastic. He's willing to jump in wherever's needed, and we're glad to have him.
Very good. Anyone have any questions of Mr. DeCoursey? All right, then. Well, there's a place here for public comments. Does anybody have any? Do we have anybody on that would have public comments, Jenny?
Ms. Chair, we can ask participants if they'd like to make a comment to use the raise their hand function. We have 3 attendees right now in Zoom, so if they want to use the raise their hand function, we ask that they do so now, and I can bring them into the room.
Thank you, Kevin.
It appears that we do not have any.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make such a motion.
Second.
At 6:20 p.m. Thank you all. And shall we just stay on, Jenny?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You can mute and stop
Okay.
your video if you'd like.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
I want to try and change my computers. Hey, Pat.
Are we ready, Jenny?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, so at this time, we'll call this High Springs City Commissioner meeting to order. What's the day? August the 13th at 6:30. At this time, we'll have the invocation. I guess I can do that. Let us pray. Most gracious God, as we come now to discuss the business of the city of High Springs, God, we just ask you to lead us and guide us, Lord, as we make the right decision for this city. And again, we just want to thank you for your protection, how you have truly been good to each and every one of us, how you've been good to this city. And I just want to say a special prayer for all the first responders. Just protect them from any hurt, harm, and danger. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All righty. This time we'll roll call, please.
We're going to do the pledge?
It's not on here, so that's why I didn't do it.
Oh,
We can do it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Yeah. At this time, our roll call.
Mayor Williams,
Yeah, here.
Vice Mayor James. She's here.
She's here. She on mute.
Commissioner Jameson,
Here.
Commissioner Jones,
here.
Commissioner Lavin. Here.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
All right, now I'm here.
You're officially here now.
Yeah.
Okay. At this time, we're going to entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda. And
Mr. Mayor,
we need to take off item number 4 off the agenda.
do we need to add the approval of the CRA air conditioning?
No, I don't think we don't need to do that. No, ma'am.
The commission doesn't have to approve it?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I move that we approve the agenda, except deleting item 4.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Okay, motion carries. At this time, we entertain a motion for the approval of July the 9th and 23rd, 2020 commissioner meeting and August the 4th, 2020 budget workshop.
I move that we approve the minutes, July 9th and 23rd, 2020 commission meetings and August 4th, 2020 budget workshop.
Second.
We got a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. All right, moving on to continuous business. Item number 1, consider ordinance 2020-05. Mr. City Attorney,
He's muted.
he's muted.
Yeah, he's muted.
That's not all bad.
That's what judges do to me. Can you hear me now okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, sorry about that. This I'll read by title only. This is ordinance number 2020-05, an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, amending the future land use plan map of the City of High Springs Comprehensive Plan as amended relating to an amendment of more than 10 acres of land pursuant to an application CPA 20-01 by the property owner of said acreage under the amendment procedures established in sections 163.3161 through 163.3248 of the Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in land use classification from county rural agricultural less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to city residential rural 1 dwelling unit per 5 gross acres to 1 dwelling per gross acreage on certain lands within the corporate limits of the city of High Springs, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2020-05 as read by title only. And Mr. Mayor, this is a quasi judicial matter.
All right, thank you, sir. Kevin, would you let anyone know that they need to be a part of, need to speak on this matter? They need to be sworn in by the attorney?
Yes, sir, I will. If anyone would like to be a part of the meeting, please use your raise your hand function. We'll allow you in so you can be sworn in. We'll give you a minute to do so.
And while they are doing that, usually when we're live, we can do it en masse, but when we do it on the Zoom meeting, we do it person by person. So anybody that's interested in testifying tonight or speaking to our mayor and the commission will need to raise their hand individually.
Mr. Mayor, we have 2 more that we're bringing in. We'll have 4 total. All right, Mr. Mayor, we have no further hands at this time.
Nobody's raised their hand, Kevin.
No, sir. We have 4 that did raise their hand. I've brought them in: Mr. Sowell, Mr. Busby, a dry.yahoo, and a Mr. Lee.
Got it. Okay. David Sowell, if you'll raise your right hand, and do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Busby, same thing. If you raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm to tell nothing but the truth, tell the truth and nothing but the truth, sir? You'll need to unmute yourself, Mr. Busby.
I do.
Okay. And the next person, I'm not sure, it's listed as dry.yard, I believe, on the screen. Can you unmute yourself and tell us what your name is?
Yes,
Dry.yard.
yes,
Go
my
ahead.
name is John Lynch.
Did you say John White?
Lynch, L-Y-N-C.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. If you'll raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And Mr. Lee, you're the last one. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? And are you raising your right hand?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you.
The witnesses all been sworn, Mr. Mayor. And now it's time for any presentations. Whoever the applicant is can make their presentation at this time. But before we do that, is there any ex parte communications that any of the commissioners have had, or you, Mr. Mayor, that we need to put on the record here first?
No, sir, not I.
No.
Mr. Mayor, there are no ex parte communications, it would appear. And therefore, we can go ahead and proceed. If there's any presentation on behalf of the applicant, that can go on now. If not, Mr. Mayor, the application is before you. As you can see, this is an application by Double B to change the classification from county rural agriculture less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to city residential rural 1 dwelling unit per 5 gross acres to 1 dwelling unit per gross acre.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, discussion at this time. Commissioners.
I know that Mr. Busby came before us a while ago, I don't remember when, about this. So is this the second step, the changing the comprehensive plan to, I think he was before us when it got annexed into the city. That might be what I'm remembering. So is this our second step now that we have to change the comprehensive land use plan to allow for that rural 1 unit per acre for them to be able to utilize this property?
Mr. Mayor, that is exactly correct. It is the step in the process. So we annex this property in, and until we exercise our zoning authority over the property, we have to apply the zoning regulations of the county. So this is the first part of the process, which is to change the future land use map and the comprehensive plan from the county's zoning designation to the city's designation. And then there's a second ordinance that you'll see later in the agenda, which actually changes the zoning itself. There's been a great deal of discussion about this in front of the Planning and Zoning Board. And I think there's been, I believe I recognize all of the names that are on the screen in front of me this evening. And these individuals, I believe, were at P&Z, and it was explained that the development process of a subdivision is far different than the zoning process. The actual development is when we'll know the intensity of the development and exactly what will be going into this property if it ever is developed. This is the zoning part of the process. When we get to plat approval, as was the number 4 on the agenda as an example, that's when you actually know the configuration of the subdivision, how the road system will work. And our land development code requires a great deal more scrutiny with respect to traffic. Will this property be attached to water and sewer? If not, then the septic tank and well system requires a much less residential density. So there's been a lot of that discussion at P&Z, and I'm just setting the stage of where we were at and what occurred at Planning and Zoning Board level, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Walker, you just mentioned water and sewer and septic and so forth. Where does this property fall within that right now? Is it within the parameters of requiring sewer and water, or is it beyond that to where it's septic? And
my understanding it is not in the future plan for water. It does not need to have water and sewer service. That's my understanding of it.
so there's no current line or line that's going to go there, because if you're within 200 feet, my understanding of a line, then you have to hook up.
That's correct. There was a distance estimate, and Christy, our planning tech, provided that at Planning and Zoning, and I cannot remember what the distance was. It seems to me it's a half a mile away from our existing water and sewer line. She took the map and measured it and gave us a line, and I believe it was half a mile away. Okay. So it's not going to be. Here's the point: if the developer, if it's ever developed and you want to gain greater intensity for this property than 1 dwelling unit per acre, you're going to have to attach to water and sewer, and the developer will need to run the line out to that property. Right. This size of this development makes that very improbable that will happen unless it's coupled with other property, and we just don't know what that'll, until that time comes, we don't know.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, Commissioner, y'all have any other questions? Allow citizen comments? Okay. At this time, we open up for citizen comments.
Mr. Mayor, yes, Sorry. If anyone would like to make a citizen comment, we ask that, again, you use your raise your hand function, and we will allow you into the room. Mr. Mayor, Ms. Blake would like to speak. I am bringing her in now.
Before she speak, Mr. Walker, does she need to be sworn in?
She was not sworn in previously, so Miss Mabel, if you'll unmute yourself, please, first. And then if you'll raise your right hand, Miss Mabel, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth or nothing but the truth, ma'am?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, Mabel's been sworn.
All right, thank you. All right, ma'am.
I apologize for not being sworn with y'all, but I think I was on YouTube and there's no way to do this, and I had a problem getting connected when you all were swearing in. I heard, I think Mr. Jameson speaking, Scott, yeah, Commissioner Jameson speaking. And at this point, in reference to the double B, they are limited now to 1 dwelling per 5 acres. I think we cleared that up at the planning meeting because there's no city sewer and water. They will have to be on well and septic at this point in time. I don't know if they've submitted their plan or not, but I know that was clarified to us at the meeting. They would have to have 1 dwelling per 5 acres because of well and septic tank. With that.
Miss Mabel, that is my recollection of the testimony at the Planning and Zoning Board as well.
Correct. And as you said, it would cost quite a bit. I mean, don't know where people have money, you don't know. But in reference to getting it hooked up to the city, as far as I understand, like you said, the developer will be responsible for that cost if they decide to go that route. And if they decide to go that route, then that's when the city can approve 1 dwelling per acre.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay.
Now, there's also the stipulation, as Commissioner Jameson will note, that it's not a given that that happens. The commission has the discretion to approve developments because of the fact that we are getting to the point where our sewer system needs to be expanded, and whether or not we can accommodate additional hookups to our sewer system is another thing that is within our commission purview.
I think I lost you.
Could you all hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and repeat what I just said, Miss Mabel.
Okay, everybody blanked out on me.
It's not a given. Miss Mabel, can you hear me?
Well, I lost you for a minute. I didn't hear anything.
Okay, I'll try. I'll replow it again. It's not a given that someone can just hook up, a developer can hook up to our water and wastewater system. In other words, if we're at capacity, then we may not allow that. So that's another factor that happens somewhere down the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jack Lynch, and I live at Northwest 244th Street here in High Springs. Seeing how code changes or ordinance changes, no, zoning changes, I'm sorry, are so much in the agenda for tonight, I thought this was a good time to bring it up. My question is on 244th Street, which they call downtown High Springs, is that zoned agricultural or is that zoned residential?
Now, are you speaking on the matter that we're speaking about now?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And the reason I'm bringing this up is my wife and I have been hearing for weeks now roosters crowing in the neighborhood. in at least 3 different locations within a 3 to 4 block area. And then to make things even more interesting, within the last week, we're starting to hear lambs baying in the neighborhood. So I'm not sure where I live anymore. Maybe you can give me an answer. My wife has spoken to Chrissy at Code Enforcement, who has been very helpful, has said she will notify the code enforcement officer to look into at least the crowing roosters.
So, are you speaking on this item here, ordinance 2020-05? Are you just
No,
asking?
no, sir, no. I'm talking about the roosters crowing in my neighborhood, and now we have lambs baying in the neighborhood.
Can we got a place coming up next with citizen requests and comments, and then you can ask about anything that's not on the agenda. So right now we're discussing ordinance 2020-05. But once we finish this, when we do citizen comments, then you can ask that question. Okay? Are you there?
Mr. Mayor, I muted him. I'm going to put him back as an attendee, and if he would like to speak again, he can use the raise his hand function.
Okay. Okay. All right, so at this time, anyone else have any comments, citizen comments on ordinance 2020-05?
There are no hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Okay. So at this time, we move for action, commissioners. Okay, y'all.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2020-05 on first reading.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor James,
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Lavin,
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you all. All right, moving on to citizen requests and comments. For issues not on the agenda, please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please. All right, Kevin, you can bring them back on.
Mr. Mayor, anyone who would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function. I will allow you to speak and bring you in one at a time. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Lynch would like to speak. Mr. Lynch, you are being brought in now.
Thank you. Sorry for being out of order before.
That's okay.
I just, it's, the roosters are annoying to say the least. And yeah, we just want it looked into if it could be done. And maybe, from what I understand, roosters are not allowed in downtown High Springs. I don't know how true that is, but according to Chrissy, it's a no-no. So I would just like to have something done about that. And the code enforcement officer, I believe his name is Officer Taylor, has not gotten back to us yet on that. We'd appreciate some kind of a phone call just to let us know where the situation stands. And if something can be done, I'm a happy guy. And my wife will be very happy. And if we see any lambs running up and down 244, we'll give you a call right away.
And what was your address again?
It's 18841 Northwest 244th Street.
244th Street.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm trying to picture that one. Put my chief at
Little Gray Cottage. It's right next to 108th Avenue.
Ever since they don't change the streets, I get them mixed up now. Where's that, Antoine? I mean, Chief Shepherd.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's near Subway, down at 244th Street. We are aware of that complaint. The officer has made contact and correspondence with the offender in that case. He's working on several other cases, and they're in the process of trying to resolve that situation with the rooster.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Calvin?
No, sir, we have no further hands raised at this time.
Okay. If no one else, we'll move on to new business. Item number 1 is consider ordinance 2020-07.
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of High Springs Land Development Code as amended, relating to the rezoning of 10 or more contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application Z 2001 by the property owners of said acreage, providing for rezoning from IND industrial to R1 residential of certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of High Springs, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass ordinance 2020-07 as read by title only. And again, Mr. Mayor, this is a quasi-judicial public hearing, so anyone wishing to speak on this matter will need to be sworn. If you've previously been sworn, then you don't have to be resworn. And you should raise your hand and allow Kevin to bring you in to be sworn.
Mr. Chair, we have no hands raised at this time.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, the application speaks for itself. This is an application Z 20-01 by Jared Ryan Hinkson and Crystal Courtney Hinkson to amend the official zoning map of the City of High Springs. It is 20.06 acres, more or less, as per the application.
Mayor, I have a question. R1 zoning is up to 4 units per acre, is that correct?
I believe that is correct, Mr. Mayor.
So that allows this 20-acre parcel to hold 80 homes, is that correct? Am I calculating that correct? So we're going from industrial zoning to residential 1, which would be a potential of 80 homes there. And that's in a place, do we already have water and sewer there? I don't think we do.
R1 is going to be 1 to 1 acre or 1 to 5 acres per home. It's going to be the same as what we just talked about with the double B. That's going to be located at the end of 174th Avenue and 222 Street, down by Sonny Tillman's property across the street. It is appropriate zoning for the area. There is water available down there. Currently, we do not have sewer in that area.
So that is limited to 1 unit per acre, Bruce, that particular designation? The R1, okay.
Yes, ma'am. And currently, we don't have anything on the table saying they're going to turn it into a subdivision or anything else. They just wanted to change the zoning from industrial to residential.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioners? I guess this might be a question for the city manager, I guess. Well, never mind, because they don't have no plans doing it right now, so never mind. No.
Well, I think, Mr. Mayor, I think I was probably going along the same line as you. This is just getting it in. There's been nothing officially put out there for us to look at. I guess you were going, I don't want to speak for you, but this is just to get it in there. There's been no plans as far as any future, what they're going to do with it. It's just to turn it over, Bruce. Is that what it is right now? Just change it?
Correct. That is my understanding from staff. We haven't had any further discussions other than it going from industrial to R1.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Any citizens' comments?
Mr. Mayor, there's no hands raised.
Okay, at this time, Commissioner, what's your?
I'll
the
make
action
a
on this?
motion to approve 2020-07.
A second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Vice Mayor James,
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Lavin,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Okay, thank you. The motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 2. Consider ordinance 2020-08.
Mr. Mayor, there's an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of High Springs Land Development Code as amended relating to the rezoning of 10 or more contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application C20-2 by the property owner of said acreage, providing for rezoning from county agricultural to city R1 residential of certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of High Springs, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass ordinance 2020-08 upon its reading by title only. Again, this is a quasi judicial matter, Mr. Mayor. This is 65.87 acres.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is the property that we just did for the land use map. It's the same property.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, any discussion?
I just am confirming the R1 zoning is 1 unit per acre. They can't go any higher density than that.
Right. Well, they'd have to have utilities to do 1 in 1 acre, which they do not. So they're going to be 1 to 5 acre under the way it's currently written.
Okay, I just want to confirm that. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Any other commissioners? Citizens? Any citizens want to speak on this matter?
Mr. Mayor, I'll just remind the citizens again, if anyone would like to speak, to please use your raise your hand function. Mr. Mayor, we have Ms. Blake who would like to speak again.
All right.
Ms. Blake, you've been brought into the room.
She's been previously sworn, so we don't need to swear her again.
Okay. I apologize, and I might be getting it confused of which one is which. The only thing I would like to point out when we were at the planning meeting, your concurrency assessment document that they use to do approval on is, it wasn't in relation to the property that was, that they were doing. It was just like a generic type of document that they were using to do the approvals on, and not anything totally, I mean, really related to the property that we were talking about. But if I remember correctly, they say they will get more detail once they get planning information or anything on what the development is going to be. That concurrency document that they use.
Currently, there is no development at this time. It's just a zoning.
Right. I'm saying I might be on the wrong one. Might have been, my statement probably should have been on the other one. But just in reference to the concurrency document that they use in order to do certain type of assessments.
Yeah, speed concurrency, road concurrencies like we talked about, all that will be figured out once they decide what they're going to do with the property.
Correct. That'll be more detailed at that time.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other citizen, Kevin?
No, Mr. Mayor, that was it.
Okay. Commissioner, what's your pleasure?
Well, if there's no other comments, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-08 on its first reading.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Lavin,
Yes.
Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor James,
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries 5-0. All right, moving on to item number 3, consider ordinance 2020-09.
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of High Springs Land Development Code as amended, relating to the rezoning of 10 or more contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application Z20-03 by the property owner of said acreage, providing for rezoning from IND industrial to C3 commercial of certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of High Springs, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. This is a quasi judicial matter, Mr. Mayor, and at the appropriate time, the appropriate motion would be to pass this ordinance as read by title only. This contains 32.98 acres more or less.
Thank you, sir. Kevin, I guess ask if anyone want to speak on this item that need to be sworn in at this time.
Mr. Mayor, we have a Mr. Lee who would like to speak. Mr. Lee, you've been run into the room.
Mr. Lee, I think you were previously sworn. If that's the case, I believe we swore you in. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Already. On behalf of Woodland 3, the owner, represent the company, and I'm pretty sure you might have a little bit of background information. I'm not 100% sure what kind of package you have. I've been speaking with Ms. Atkins, and she said she might have informed you at some point about the situation here. But just like to, I read this into the minutes at the Planning Commission and thought I'd just read it in for the record now, so you would basically have a little bit better idea of exactly what the situation is here. We bought this property some time back, and in 2005, we made an application to the Planning Commission and to the City Commission to change this land from industrial to commercial, just like basically we're asking for commercial now. And basically that was approved by the commission in 2006 and submitted to, at the time, DCA. I think DCA had perhaps a little bit more involvement at the time than they do now with the changes in the law. So the city did transmit it to them for approval and comment. And then at that time, there's sort of like a last run up in the real estate market. There was a lot of development activity going on. The city had just put in their sewer system, and there's a lot of interest with development and expanding residential because of the sewer system. And also at that time, the city was required to go back to DCA for their 10-year renewal on their citywide comprehensive future land use amendment process. So at that time, it kind of got tabled and swept up with the overall master planning of the city, which ultimately resulted in about 9 different categories. When we first were dealing with this in 2005, the city only had 3 different categories for land use. That would be industrial, commercial, and residential. So at this time, when it went through the administrative process for the large scale comprehensive that the city was mandated by the DCA, it was basically, instead of changing it from industrial to commercial, they'd put an MU designation on it. And at that time, it was basically supposed to be eventually rezoned into commercial. But, for whatever reason, the staff changes and things kind of quieted down, I guess, in the bubble burst in the real estate market, and it never did get changed from industrial to commercial. So actually the industrial land use and zoning, actually the industrial zoning that it has now is not an allowed use in the MU district. So what we have is an inconsistent zoning, with the land use. So what we're asking to do is, and we work with your staff and the consultants, and they basically supported going to a C3 zoning, which is consistent with the property adjacent to the north. And as far as there is sewer and water here, there's no action that's being asked for to approve any entitlements. We're just asking to get the land use and the zoning consistent, which they should have been at some time in the past. So I would appreciate your consideration, and we thank the city staff and consultants and agree with their recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. You answered my question before I can get the answer. I mean, get the ask, because I remember this. Because Jenna, I always thought it was mixed use, but it never did get to that process to change it to a mixed use.
The mixed use allows a lot of different zoning categories,
right,
in commercial, but it does not allow industrial. So right now we have basically, you know, kind of this a state of limbo where you really could not put an industrial use on the property because MU designation does not allow that.
Right.
It's a non-conforming use for the zoning is what has happened here. And basically it was a clerical error on our part that it never got adjusted when we redid the LDC. And we had a lot of staff changes. Mr. Lee is correct. That was at the time when Christian was no longer with the city and we were having a huge turnover. It just got overlooked. So trying to make it right and get it appropriate, we're bringing it back as a C3 at this point.
Okay, because I remember.
Everybody know where this property is?
Well, basically, it's adjacent to the property we just approved for.
Just north of it.
It's to the north of it, but it actually fronts on what's known as Railroad Avenue, where there is water in that area, and it basically has, you know, there's no no entitlements or plan being submitted now, but it is a little bit more, I guess, aligned with the extension of Palm Avenue for the truck route. So it does have pretty good traffic flow, you know, for any development that might occur in the future.
Yes. And Bruce, I'm thinking sewer right on Railroad Avenue, correct? All the way out to.
There is sewer on Railroad, correct?
Yeah. Okay.
It's just not within that 250 that we talked about with Hing Song. It's just too far north until we put that lift station in there. There was supposed to be a lift station there on that corner as well.
Corner. Yes. Okay. Any other commissioners?
My only concern on this, I don't have that history. Thank you, Mr. Lee, for giving us the history. I appreciate that. It's just that it's surrounded by residential. I know across Railroad Avenue, you know, the feed store, the old feed store and everything is there, but the perimeters are residential. And so what is C3 zoning? What kind of, that's heavy use commercial, isn't it?
What are you asking me?
Well, Bruce, can you give me what the C3 zoning? I don't have the zoning book in front of me. You know, that's heavier use commercial.
Let me grab my book. The thing is with what's zoned around it, it was the appropriate zoning for what's around us. We didn't have spot zoning. I know that because what's all around it, and it is a mixed use in that area as well. But give me a second, I'll verify that also.
It provides for commercial intensive, high density residential and mobile home parks. Its floor area ratio is 0.75.
Could you say again, Mr. Walker?
The commercial C3 is commercial intensive, including high density resident, which includes high density residential and mobile home parks. And the floor area ratio is 0.75.
Okay.
This is Dennis again. I don't mean to interrupt, but if I'm not mistaken, I think the could be wrong, but I mean, I thought like the mobile home requirement required an R3 land use, R3 zoning, which is not an allowed compatible zoning with MU. So it would not, I don't think it could be a mobile home like park or even mobile home allowed. Maybe perhaps you could get one mobile home on it. I don't know about that with a special exemption, but it would not, the land to the east does have an R3 zoning. And I don't believe the MU would allow an R3 zoning. You'd have to change the land use to get that zoning, in my opinion. Could be wrong.
Hmm.
Basically, the C3 zoning is basically considered, I think, a residential commercial use. It would allow to have, more than likely, you would have commercial like on the front of Railroad Avenue when that area redevelops. And you might have some, commercial over top of residential, below residential. And then more than likely you could have apartment zoning in that and, a little bit more dense. You cannot go down to a real narrow lot, and the 40-foot lot requires an R3 zoning, which would be more consistent with what like a mobile home type lot.
I would agree with Mr. Lee as to what he has stated. If
Right.
you look at our land development regulations, it's found on page CDB 27. As he stated, there's a residential component to C3. Permitted use is attached single family, detached single family. Mobile home is a permitted use, mobile home, not plural. The Class A mobile home park is not listed as a permitted use. A conditional use would be mobile home park. So as he stated, you're going to have to, if that was the use that was projected, you'd have to go through quite a labyrinth of permitting in order to get that mobile home park as a permitted conditional use. Duplexes are allowed as a permitted use, and two-family apartments are a special exception, on and on. But I agree with what he said. There is a residential component to the more intensive commercial use.
Well, then I agree with Commissioner Lavin, because we need to be careful about commercial and residential. I am concerned about that as well.
There's actually less restrictions with the industrial than what there would be with the C3 commercial. The C3 commercial is, like they said, is a mixed use. So you're going to have commercial frontage like along railroad, as Mr. Lee stated, and then you're going to have housing in the backside, which would be very similar to like that R1 zoning. It would more than likely be like an R2 going into that area, if I'm not mistaken. I have it in front of me. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for that. Because it was a clerical error on our part. I didn't expect to get this much into detail. I'm trying to locate my notes.
This is Dennis again. If the small lots that front on Palm Avenue, I'm sure would be more than likely what you're referring to, and perhaps the ones on the east as well that are more the mobile home park there. But anytime you would submit a site plan for approval, you would probably have the setbacks, and you'd have maybe even required to have some sort of a wall built, or like, a vegetative buffer between existing uses. And so that would be dealt with, when you submit your preliminary plat and design standards for protecting the residential people in there. I mean, it might not even come to that. It could be, it might end up being a big buffer area, like, part of your density. You could, a lot of times you'll find like maybe you get in the core of your property and you might use more density and have like green space all around that to protect the park-like setting of a development.
Bottom line, when it gets to that, the plan would have to come through. It'd have to be approved by the commission.
Yes.
At that step, we had something similar, 27 going there, where we had the storage, where you had commercial and residential, and we required that on the storage thing that there was like a buffer, and you had to have landscaping to basically buffer between them and the residential area around them. So I'm okay with what's being asked, because ultimately we're gonna have the authority to basically to approve whatever's brought in and to put any restrictions or so forth on it, like we did on that other property, requiring certain things to make sure that it fit into the community. So if it was a typo thing, I don't have an issue with approving it, with the understanding that ultimately the commission gets the final say on what goes there, and from a landscaping and use wise. So I'm okay with it.
And if I understood correctly, the industrial use isn't compatible with the mixed use. So our error basically has rendered this property unusable until we correct this issue. Is that correct? Is that an accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
No public comments, Mr. Mayor.
No public comments? All right, thank you, sir. All right, commissioners, what's your pleasure on this?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2020-09. Get some conversation on it and then get action on it.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second and a discussion. Okay, hearing none. Ms. Jenny?
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Lavin,
Yes.
Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor James,
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. All right, so at this time we had city attorney's report and updates.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. City Manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just a few things. Have our citizens remember the census to fill it out. That's money for the community and to vote. And the Monday through Wednesday of next week, I'll be taking off. So I'll be available, but I'll be out of the office. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Commissioner Lavin?
I just want to say I really appreciate the people that are coming and being attendees in the meeting. This is so challenging for all of us, and appreciate those citizens that take the time and are there to help us and ask questions. And I appreciate, people like Mrs. Blake and Mr. Lee and whoever else, Mr. Lynch, that spoke to us tonight. Thank you.
All right, is that it? Commissioner Jones?
I have nothing at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Jameson?
I'm good, sir.
Good. Vice Mayor James?
Vice Mayor James is good.
Well, I can't let y'all get away just like that. No, I just got a question for the Chief Shepherd and Chief Gillingham. I heard you guys passing by my house. What were they up to today? With the
I'm going
sirens
to blame
going?
that completely on Chief Shepherd. I'm going to blame that completely on Chief Shepherd. That was his fault. So,
Well, my
I'm gonna fish him
grandkids love it, so I'm gonna approve it of it.
I'm still going to throw him under the bus with it.
We did a birthday drive-by by a very deserving person in that area today. That lives very close to you. Wink, wink.
I got you.
We could actually hear it.
All right.
We could actually hear it during the CRA meeting.
Well, y'all can hear?
I could hear it in the background from going by your house.
Yes. All right. All right. Is there nothing else? At this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make such a motion.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. Y'all be safe and y'all have a blessed week.
All right.